Okay, today we're going to talk about dimensional analysis. When we use dimensional analysis, which is sometimes referred to as unit conversions, we're changing one quantity into a different but equivalent quantity with different units, or taking a ratio and turning it into a different but equivalent ratio. We use equivalency statements throughout this process. Here's an example of a couple. There are lots and lots of them, but 7 days is the same amount of time as 1 week. 1 minute is the same amount of time, just expressed in a different way, as 60 seconds. We will write these equivalency statements as fractions, and when they're written in fraction form, we will call them equivalency ratios or sometimes conversion factors. Each equivalency ratio has a value of 1. So when we're using them in this process, all we're doing is multiplying an existing quantity or ratio by 1. So we're not changing its value, we're just changing the way that it looks. So here's an example. How many seconds old are you? So we'll start with your age in years. And I think most of you are about 14 years old. So we'll start with the 14 in units of years. I like to set my conversions in this kind of a table. You might see different folks just use separate fractions, but I like to set it up this way, but it's all the same. So we need some equivalency ratio that has a quantity of years in it. So I know that 1 year is the same amount of time as 365 days. Okay, so what happens now is we have a unit of year in the numerator here, the unit of year in the denominator, and we end up being able to cross those out. So the years go away. So right now I could express 14 years in days if I multiplied 14 times 365, but we want to get it all the way to seconds. All right, so we need to keep going. So we need an equivalency ratio that we know that has days in it. Well, we know that in 1 day there are 24 hours. All right, and I'll go back and cross off in a minute. Let's keep going with the equivalency ratio. We know that in 1 hour there are 60 minutes, and we know that in 1 minute there are 60 seconds. So now that's the unit of time that we were going for. Let's cross off everything that is the same in the numerator and the denominator. Make sure all those other units do go away. We have days over days, hours over hours, minutes over minutes. So that is what we want. The only unit of time we have left is seconds. So to figure out how many seconds we have there, we are just going to multiply in our calculator. 14 times 365 times 24 times 60 times 60. And what does that equal? That equals 441,504,000 seconds. So if you're 14 years old, that's how many seconds old you are. All right, let's take a look at another example. Convert the distance from your house to school in inches. So let's just say that you live 8 miles from your school. So you're going to start with the quantity 8 miles. All right. So we need an equivalency ratio that has miles in it. And I know that 1 mile is equivalent to 5,280 feet. Now this is a pretty common equivalency ratio. Some of you may not be familiar with it yet, but you should get familiar with that one. There's some others that you may not know that will be given to you. So we're into feet now, but we want to be into inches. Most of us know the equivalency ratio that converts feet to inches. We know that 1 foot is equivalent to 12 inches. Now notice that since miles was in the numerator to start with, that's why I put the miles unit in the denominator. In the second step, that put the feet unit in the numerator. That's why in the next step, I had to put the feet unit in the denominator. All right, so anyway, we're down to inches now. Let's cross off anything that can divide out. Let's see, miles over miles divides out, feet over feet goes away. That leaves us with only inches, which is the unit we wanted to be in. So what we need to do now is just multiply 8 times 5280 times 12, and that gives us 506,880 inches. So if you live 8 miles from school, you live 506,880 inches from school. All right, another example here. Now this time we're starting with a ratio. We have this problem that says which is faster, going 80 miles per hour or 40 meters per second. I want you to make a quick guess at that, and then we'll see as we work it out. Okay, so we can start with 40 meters per second and turn that into some amount of miles per hour, or we can start with 80 miles per hour and turn that into some amount of meters per second. So I'm going to start with the miles per hour. So we are looking at a speed of 80 miles per hour. So this time we have two different units. We have a unit of distance and a unit of time that we need to change up. I'm going to start with the unit of distance first. So we use this equivalency ratio in the last problem. I know that 1 mile is the same distance as 5,280 feet. Okay, I know that 1 foot is the same distance as 12 inches. And I know that 1 inch is the same distance as 2.54 centimeters. Actually, that came from my chart right here. All right, and also in the chart, I know that 100 centimeters is the same distance as 1 meter. So I'm in the unit of meters that I was looking for. So we're good as far as the distance goes. Now we have to change the time unit, but let's go ahead and knock out these distance units that we have in common in numerator and denominator. So miles over miles goes away, feet over feet divides out, inches over inches divides out, centimeters over centimeters divides out, leaving us with a distance unit of meters. So that's where we want to be. Now we need to get this time unit of hours into seconds. So what is an equivalency ratio? We know for time, we know that 1 hour is equivalent to 60 minutes. And we know that 1 minute is equivalent to 60 seconds. So let's take care of those units now. So hours, try that again. Hours over hours will divide out, minutes and minutes will divide out, leaving us with only a unit of time of seconds. So I've now changed this into meters per second. So we'll put this in our calculator. What we need to multiply in the numerator is 80 times 5280 times 12 times 2.54 times 1 times 1 times 1. I don't need to write that again. All right, and then in the denominator, I have 100 times 60 times 60. So what does that give us? That works out to be 35.76 meters per second. So let's go back to the question. The question was, what is faster, 80 miles per hour or 40 meters per second? Well, 80 miles per hour is equivalent to 35.76 meters per second. So that tells us that 40 meters per second is a faster speed than 80 miles per hour. Okay, another question with square units. How many square inches is 20 square feet? So we're starting with this quantity of 20 feet squared. Not a ratio, just a single quantity. Now, what I need to figure out then is in 1 foot squared, how many inches squared are there? Sometimes I like to draw a diagram to help me out with this. So let's think of a square foot. So let's suppose we have a square that is 1 foot on each side. Well, we know that 1 foot is the same length as 12 inches. And then I'm going to multiply to find the area of this 1 foot square in inches. 12 times 12 gives me 144. So 1 square foot is the same as 144 square inches. So now all I need to do there is multiply 20 times 144, and that gives me 2,880. I do need to go ahead and cross off the feet squared, leaving me with the units of inches squared. Okay, one more example. So you're going to see some problems a lot that you don't know kind of what those dimensions are that you're talking about. So here we have an example that says to reach your beach house from the ocean, you must climb a set of stairs that is 30 meters long. How many hands is this? So we're going to need a conversion chart for that because we're not familiar with hands, but we're starting with 30 meters. That's the distance we have to travel. I want to turn this into hands, but what I have to do is just start with what I know. I know meters, and I need to convert that to some unit of length that I know. Well, I know that 1 meter is equivalent to 100 centimeters. Okay, so I'm kind of looking on the chart here at centimeters. I don't see anything that would take me directly to hands, but I see, okay, I have inches to hands where I want to go. And I do know that I can get from centimeters to inches, and here's that equivalency ratio right here that we need. We know that 2.54 centimeters is the same length as 1 inch. Okay, and now we're almost there. We have a conversion factor that will take us from inches to hands. 4 inches is the same length as 1 hand. Okay, so let's cross off those units. Make sure the only thing we have left are hands. Let's see. Meters. We'll cross out with meters. Centimeters with centimeters. Inches with inches, leaving us with only a unit of hands. So what we'll do is we will multiply, we'll write out 30 times 100 in the numerator. 2.54 times 4 in the denominator, and that gives us 295.3 hands. So there's a little bit about dimensional analysis.